even just what Emma was saying right there, last night was such a treat for everyone who was able to join. And it was primarily for medical students and pre-med students. And it was facilitated by Dr. Margaret Tando, who is super involved with the medical school here as an assistant professor, as assistant dean of diversity at UVM. And so it was really, really awesome just having her sort of moderate the time, but then just the personal sharing, the kind of the mindsets and the, just the skills to be able to get through, those challenges and those times of adversity, especially in our learning and in some of our career paths. It was just super helpful. Sue and I took pages of notes just because there was so much in there that was super practical, but also very inspirational. I just want to say thanks to the gang that shared last night. It was just terrific. And this morning, again, was just such a treat. The Ottenwellers and the Broyles are people who would, headline a conference of thousands of people speaking about global health awareness. And it's really, really special for them to be here with us. Thanks so much. And to kind of share their lives and their wisdom, with us. And it was just inspiring. It was super challenging. It's humbling just to hear all the stories and think, boy, what have I done? And what am I going to do with all this? But I'm excited, and I think we're up for the challenge to see people and do something. And so thank you so much for that. And again, we're going to have these videos up on our YouTube channel. We're going to be trying to share them and just get as many to enjoy them as possible. Even in the Bible, it just talks about how God's dream for us is for us to engage in love in our whole lives, and for us to sort of live in love mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, and just reap the benefits of that. It talks about how wisdom brings health to our whole body, our whole lives. And that's really what we're partaking in today is wisdom to be able to move forward, wisdom to be able to put things into perspective. We talked a lot about that last night. Wisdom to think and dream globally, but then also to act locally and have the courage to take those steps to get involved and to care for our neighbor and to take an interest in those around us. And I think especially during this time of pandemic and COVID, there's so many felt needs around us that I think that we can really meet with a lot of the things that were discussed this morning and that we're going to talk about here this afternoon. We've got a great session planned for this next hour and a half or so, and really, really appreciate the Charons and the Williams for being with us today. Yeah. And they're going to introduce themselves. These two couples, these individuals, these families are extraordinary. And so thank you so much for coming and speaking to us about the sacred journey of self-care. And I was in the getting my first COVID shot the other day, and I was speaking with the nurse, and she was saying how some of the older people, the younger people are starting to come in Vermont to get their vaccinations. And she was saying how the older people tend to come in and say, hey, just go ahead and give me my shot. Excuse me. And they're a little bit, more kind of cavalier about it. She said the younger people, though, are coming in and they're really nervous and they're feeling a lot of anxiety about the pandemic, about even getting the shot. And she said it's really kind of a different mindset. And it's and so she was just speaking about kind of caring for that, and this group of people that's coming in really needing to be aware of what they're going through. And I think it really speaks to this need for self-care and for us to be aware of how to care for ourselves, how to help one another care for ourselves, and how to really be in that together. And so thanks so much today for coming, Williams and Sharon's, and sharing what you have for us. this afternoon. It's a really needed topic. And Sue was just going to share a little bit about just some of our personal love and respect and appreciation, admiration for these couples.
Well, one of the honors of having moved a lot is you just to collect. We kind of feel like we're treasure hunters. We keep collecting these treasured, amazing humans throughout our journey in life. And you know, we've known the Charons for over 25 years. Michelle was there. I threw up every day pretty much with my pregnancies. So she watched me throw up all the time with Nick. And she was around me for a lot of those things. And we met Chris when he was not student. You were doing your rotation.
Your residency, right?
Yeah. An intern, yeah.
We had our first Thanksgiving. This back East boy had his first Thanksgiving with us in San Diego. And I just respect, you know, we thought of them in particular because the Charons don't look like they ever age, and they're raising 4 daughters right now through COVID, having the kind of jobs that they have. And it's just an honor to be able to kind of have friends from our past that are gold. And then we had the incredible honor to live in the same town and be in a life team with the Williamses, who to us have been such safe people and are so measured, and that depth of that in them that we really want to learn from with those guys. But again, just an honor to have lifelong friends that we met just a couple of years ago, that every time we get a chance, like, let's have the Williams on, because we want to have our friends be with our friends. But I think we came up with this topic, sacred, because we really do believe that it is a sacred journey to take care of ourselves and to be our best version of ourselves. And it's precious. And so we're just really thankful that we get to sit at your feet and learn from you guys. So take it away.
It's all yours.
So thanks, guys. Thanks for that super encouraging intro. Yeah. We are so honored to be able to do this with Marcus and Sonia, because we've just heard so many great things about them through the Schaafs and actually through Dave Mitchell and other people we know down in New Jersey. But we're going to kind of start off with Michelle's going to share a bit. I'll share, Sonia will share, and then Marcus will share. And he'll give us a little lesson about the heart. And then hopefully we can open it up for some question and answer. And then if the question and answer brings out more things, we can talk a little more specifically. So differing a little bit from the prior sections where there was these great presentations, it's going to be relies a little bit more on the crew to ask questions and participate, because I think that's where the self-care is very, very individual. I will say, you know, being a surgeon, we're big on do's and don'ts. Couple of don'ts for your own self-care in the future. If you ever think that you may be doing lessons on Zoom, do not get a Godum doodle who likes to bark in the background the entire time you're talking. Apologize for that in advance. The other thing is, you never want to follow the Odenwallers and the Broyles in any sort of speaking thing. Don't do that to yourself. That was so amazing, so inspiring. But right now, I am going to just hand this off to my amazing wife. I'm going here.
Thank you.
I'm going to slide out here.
So I'm sharing my journey more from the perspective of a spouse, because most of our marriage and journey, I've been home and not working, but the spouse. So we were married in 1995. We were out in San Diego where the Schaafs were with us. And we met right after, or sort of towards the end of, right after internship, Chris's internship. And during that time we dated, and then we married he had a 1-year break, which he'll explain maybe, but he had a 1-year break between internship and residency. So during that 1-year break, we were married. And so we were, as the residency, 5-year-long residency started, we were newly married. We were getting into or doing, or how to navigate that at all. So, you know, as we started that, I was working full-time when we first got married. I was working for our church and working in an admin role. And then 4 years after we were married, and 2.5 years into the residency, we had our first of 4 daughters. So that was, you know, right smack in the middle of everything. Again, didn't know what we were doing. And then our second daughter was born towards the end of his last year of residency. And shortly after that, within a couple of months, we moved to Japan. And we were there for 2 years. While there, we adopted our third daughter from China. So we had toddlers running everywhere. And then we moved back to the States after 2 years, and then proceeded to have our fourth daughter right away. So we just belted out the babies during residency and shortly thereafter, which was challenging. And again, not knowing what we were doing. And we decided that I would stay home with all these babies and all these kids. And that was something I had wanted to do, which helps. I think if you're in the medical profession and you have a spouse that wants to stay home, and this is all in hindsight, we didn't know this back then. I can just say that from experience, that I think it helped having me want to make that decision. I know not everybody has that decision. I wasn't in the medical field, so that was able to work for us. And although I graduated college with the hopes of going into a career in interior design, so non-medical at all, we just decided I would forego that and stay home with our babies during our crazy time of raising our family. And Chris is a surgeon, so that a lot of on-call hours and a busy life. So now getting through all of that, raising our family, fast forward to now, we have 3 of our 4 girls are in college, and I've gone back to work. I'm working as a wellness coach at Crosspoint Clinical Services here in Massachusetts. And I'm also a fitness instructor for Revelation Wellness, which is a faith-based organization, it's so fun. But I get to help people, stay well and be well. And so, but we realized after years in sort of my personal journey of just me taking a back seat between raising a family and, when you're married to someone in the medical profession, or you're in the medical profession, that it's a very, very busy career. And so through that, for me, I took a back seat to all of that, and not even intentionally, just sort of life got busy, and that's where I found myself. So I realized that I needed self-care, and I needed to prioritize that after all these years when I could take a breath with our kids a little bit older. And so, medicine's very time consuming. It's a busy career, and the family can sacrifice for that, not by decision, of course. You don't ever say, let's let our family sacrifice, but the reality is a lot of on-call hours and a busy career makes for the family kind of being, giving up time sometimes. And it's a sacrifice with all of that when he has to be called in. Sometimes patients have to come first, even though you would like to say that's not the case, or you don't want that to be the case, they do. So I realized we both needed self-care through that. And after, the whirlwind of all the busyness and raising a family and moving and all of that. So to me, I just wanted to share a little bit. Self-care to me means that, it's okay to take those extra steps that we need to carve out the time for our family. We carved out some sacred family time. It might be short. He may have gotten called in sometimes, but, taking that for our family, and then individually. And for me, not finally coming to a place of not putting myself sort of last or behind, all the needs that were there. And then, so now I'm able to pick up a career that I love and prioritize self-care and my health as well as Chris's care and our kids. And I love being able to have that for my job, that literally self-care is my job. And just trying to help people realize that mind, body, spirit, all of that, we need all of that in order to be well, and that to have a balanced life. And it's easier on this end of it in hindsight, but I think if there's anything I would want to let people know is just to find a way to prioritize self-care. It's just so needed. So I think in that, just doing what we love, which for most here is medical care, finding that support, taking care of our health, and then probably most important for us, just practicing our faith, making sure that that's the nurturing piece of our spirit that a lot of times we can leave out. So that's kind of my journey as the spouse. Awesome. You're going to share your, right?
Yeah, I'm going to share now a little bit. So I'm glad that Stephen so asked us to do this, because I don't think if someone had listed a whole bunch of topics, hey, would you like to speak on this? I don't think self-care would have been the one I would have signed up for, because of a lot of what Michelle said. And it made me think about, boy, wow, I could have done, I've learned a lot about how to do it not so awesome. I think the thing that really helped us, Michelle touched on at the end though, was the spiritual aspect, the fact that, Stephen Sue mentioned that we first met many moons ago in San Diego, and that was through church, and just that community, the mentorship at all levels, personal level, a bit professional, but a lot in terms of our relationship. That was something that we were consistently involved in. So even though if you heard some of our stories of me almost making it back for Thanksgiving, Michelle said I had a year between my internship and my residency. That's because she only remembers 1 year. It was actually 2 full calendar years, but we only spent about 1 year together because the Navy gave me an all expenses paid 6-month trip with 800 of my closest friends on the USS Denver 7 months after we got married. So so there was a lot of stuff that kind of, like you would have said, kind of wrecked our self-care, but the spiritual bond that we had with, you know, with God and with each other and with the church was, it was literally a saving factor. So I know there are some people here that are, you know, from the same church. If that is something you can get involved in, get involved, because it absolutely kept us together, kept us from each other's throats at times when things were not matching up. And just with that involved, I think if you want to do a practical for your self-care, especially if you're on the, it looks like Emma is just finishing PA school. Wow. I mean, really think through what you want and what is important to you, because I look back and realize that, and listening to Michelle's story as well, how I had these almost these 2 paths picked out in my head that were mutually exclusive, meaning that I had these expectations for my 20s to have this kind of new adult life where I'm not with my parents and I have control and I'm making some money and all this freedom. And I also wanted to, you know, learn to be a surgeon, which they you know, a lot of it's like, I figured out one time, I had like 14 years of formal training after high school. And I know people who've done more than that, tacked a couple extra on because they wanted to be one specific type of surgeon or one specific type of doctor, like Marcus did. And that is not compatible with this sort of, I get done college, get a great job, have tons of time for my girlfriend and my wife. We have a couple of great years together, just being newly married, and then we carefully plan our parenthood out. Not even close. But that was somewhere in my crazy head that I thought those 2 things were going to happen in the same decade. And there was no way to make that happen. I didn't realize it till I would be kind of running up against that, saying, what is going on? And, you know, this life is so crazy, and it's so crazy for such a long amount of time. And I think it's just important when you look at any stage in your life, think about what is the most important to me. And is it possible that I may have a few mutually exclusive expectations? I'm not talking about just not having faith that you can do multiple things at once. I think God can really let you accomplish sometimes a lot more than you would think. But sometimes there was no way for me to be that guy who is just the perfect home all the time husband, mowing that lawn, doing the home repairs. There was absolutely no way for me to be that guy, having the kids and spending all that, you know, that couldn't happen in residency. It was not possible. So I think it's good to look at what your expectations are to see, how am I going to, is this really, am I planning something that kind of can't happen? And do I need to rework that and pray about that and get advice about that? And say, what's the most important so that those things really do happen? The good thing is we had the church. So the really absolute most important things that need to happen did happen. But a lot of the frills I had in my American mind all set up, most of those little, Disney World visions, those did not happen. So thank God the church helped with that. Another thing I would like to throw out as an idea, I think it might be I'm not sure if it's an American idea or a Western idea, but we do have this idea that our job must be our passion. And if you can link those 2 things up, you go do that. I'm very fortunate that I love my job. I love my specialty. If I weren't an ear, nose, and throat surgeon, I don't know that I'd even still want to be a doctor. Like, I'm really fortunate. But usually the price they make you pay for that is no time off between nursery school and age 32. So that's kind of a high tax to pay for that. I really think when you think about all of the serving that the Ottenwallers and the Broyles did, they did incorporate their profession into that, but there's all sorts of ways to serve and do things you love that don't have to be your job. And if your job is going to take some major tolls on things that you think are maybe a little more important, you might be able to, my opinion, you might be able to have just a job that gets it done, pays the bills, lets you get home in a reasonable time, and then do those things that provide the self-care. A lot of the things we do together that we do at church, we do some things for Hope. We lead our church's youth and family ministry. We're on the leadership group team. Now that's work, but I think that does kind of, keep our heads clear. It definitely is different than work. And I think it brings us together. But none of those things are work things. And I think a lot of times we ask, we treat we can ask our job to kind of be our everything because of our culture. And I don't know if every career can be that for every person. I think sometimes you have to just say, my job's going to be my job. And that is, I personally think that sometimes you have to let your job just be your job and not your passion in your whole world, because I think that can create a little bit of a conflict. And I think you don't have to be medical for that to be true. I think what medicine does is it just crams a lot of the sacrifice in your career into like one quick decade there in your 20s to 30s. And it just brings that to light more, how a job can kind of force out some of the more important things. Michelle and I both agreed later on in life, we said we would have been much better off as a couple if we had met right near the end of my residency. Because I would have had a whole lot less undamaging to do during our first years outside of training. But I'm going to let the Williams jump in here. I think Sonia is up next.
Hi, everyone. I come to you from a different perspective because although I did train as a pediatric nurse, nurse practitioner, I practiced, I worked in the hospital during my education. I did practice with well children for several years. I worked as a community health nurse. I worked in research. I had many hats, but I met Marcus as he was finishing undergraduate. I was starting graduate school at Yale, and we had no spiritual help at that time. We both knew somehow there was someone bigger than us, but we weren't really sure how to get there. But I do appreciate that we did try to pursue that together. I think that I know that God had a plan for our lives. I think that everything that happened to us has made us better people, but we started our marriage all wrong. Everything bad that could happen in marriage happened in our marriage. But through it all, we have been blessed. We married and we've been married now almost 43 years. Mm-hmm. We've seen a lot of people come and go, but we definitely would encourage you all about relationships. I think that that's the thing that God has blessed us with, that has helped us to get through all of the bad times and to appreciate the good times. I agree with all the things that have been said. I think balance in your life is something that you have to pray about and really strive for. I think if I had to think about of all the many things that I have been able to accomplish, that sometimes I think as professionals, we spend our lives pursuing excellence. There's so much pressure to compete, to excel, and all of those things are very important. But I think that when it's all said and done, we need to appreciate the moment. I think we can lose sight of the moment. And I think for me, with all the accomplishments, one of the most important things is being able to have influence with my children, and really appreciate that God put them in my life for a reason. And that has kind of driven a lot of the decisions that we've made. I stopped working when we got married on Thursday. We moved on Friday to another state. So we got there, we knew pretty much no one. We did have one friend of my parents that lived there. But in all of that, it taught me just how important it was to hold on to relationships and to want to give the best to my kids, even through all the chaos that they saw, watching their dad work so hard. I think that now that my children are grown, I do find joy that they can remember that we spent not just quality time, but quantity time. And I think quality time is really important. That is something that definitely has helped me with self-care. But I think 99% of where living takes place is in the ordinary. And I think sometimes we need to have courage to be willing to accept at different phases in our lives the ordinary, the everyday, the small joys, the small things. And I wish that that was something that I could encourage so many people around me, is that we want to be excellent. We want to do great things for our professions, for God, for our friends, for our family. But I think that based on our stage in life, that it really takes a lot of courage to say, I'm going to do this right now. This is my goal. This will be my joy. So I just wanted to encourage you all, just from a different perspective, that sometimes our stage in life, like being willing to accept that and to enjoy it. Psalms 118 says, "This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it." And I think so much of the time, we can all lose sight of the day because of all of the different things that are going on. But if anyone has any other questions, I'm happy to share them.
Thank you, Sonia. And thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Chris. First of all, I just want to thank Steve and Sue and Margaret for yesterday. It was great to be able to interact. I want to thank Dr. Gill and Dr. Broyles and all of us on the panel. And today I wanted to thank again, Dr. Broyles and Dr. Ottenwaller for their presentation. And Chris, I agree with you that I don't know why we had to follow them, but anyway, that was a setup. But anyway.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So I am a cardiologist, and I have learned that our hearts can teach us a lot about ourselves. And so I wanted to take a minute to talk a little bit about myself and to share a little bit about what I've learned over the 30 plus years of practicing in cardiology. First thing, though, I want to stress is just as part of housekeeping, is please feel free to ask questions. Send them on the chat, and I'll ask Steve and Sue to keep an eye on that. We don't have degrees in psychology. We certainly have Michelle, who has some expertise in wellness, but we've gotten degrees in just the hard knocks of life and how to build intense careers and try to stay together. So this is your shot. So I would encourage you to ask questions and put them on the, you can ask them anonymously, whatever, but send it on the chat while we're talking, and we can come back and talk to that. Secondly, even though I'll be speaking from a cardiology standpoint, I hope and pray, as Chris has mentioned, that this is something for everyone, because the principles is true no matter who you are and where you are in life. I grew up in a lower middle class Black family. My mother and father placed a premium on education. I went in high school to a private Catholic parochial all-boys school, and from there to Yale University, from there to GW Medical School, and then to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Go Tar Heels, where I did both my internal medicine residency and my cardiology fellowship. My career started as an assistant clinical professor in academia. Then I went to become chief of cardiology at the VA in East Orange. That's where I met Dr. Gill, and we worked a little bit together. And then I joined a private practice for men cardiology group for a while. Finally had a midlife crisis. Self-care is what we're talking about. Decided I wanted to be independent, broke out and went solo. Crazy. Solo practice with my wife. And now we are partners together in this practice. We have 2 children, 3 grandchildren. My oldest daughter married a Canadian. And so through her, we got 2 adopted grandchildren. So now we have a grafted family. Who would have thought? We have a Canadian family as well as our family grafted together. I think God has a sense of humor. And of course, we've been married about 43 years, Sonia said, and we're still standing. And our marriage has not been clean and perfect. So we're happy to talk about that if that's something people have questions about. But we have been saved by the grace of God. The world is crazy, upside down. How many of you have had weird feelings of anxiety, fear, rage, uncertainty? The pandemic and death is everywhere. Like Kevin, I have been in the hospital. I've seen patients I was close to die and not have their family members be by their bedside. It has been heartbreaking, even quite tiring, fatiguing, frustrating to see that. I've also seen social injustice and racism. This pandemic has exposed some major cracks in our community, our world, our country. Seeing George Floyd come into our living room, being awakened and watching the response of both my Black and white friends, exposing the gap of healthcare and the injustice of our justice system. Crazy, I'm just telling you, no matter who you are. For some, life has been put on hold or paused with uncertain future. Dreams deferred, dreams lost. The sacred journey of self-care is about how we hold on to our humanity as we pursue extremely demanding careers in healthcare, or even if not healthcare, as we just live life and find meaning. How do we do that and we maintain our humanity in a world that's upside down? Genesis 1:27 says, so God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. How do we hold on to the image stamped on each one of us? And whether you're a part of this church or not, whether you're visiting or not, whoever you are as a human being, do you know you are stamped with the image of God? How do we hold on to that? In Proverbs 4:23, it says, above all else, guard your hearts, for it is the wellspring of life. So obviously, as a cardiologist, I have a little bias, but we're going to talk about heart as part of healthcare. We want to take a few minutes, the 4 of us, and spend some time practically sharing what it means to do this. Guard your heart. And for just a minute, if you put your hand on your chest or on your neck and just feel your pulse of your heart. The average heart beats about 70 beats per minute, 90,000 beats per day, 33 million beats per year. The heart is vital. Every living cell and organ is dependent on the heart to live. When the heart ceases to beat, there is instant death. There's no other organ parallel to it or that does what it does. It is at the center of man's existence. It is also interesting that when God created man and other mammalian species, he gave us only one heart. No duplicate or redundant system in place. It is symbolic of our spiritual and emotional heart, which also cannot be divided. It is also underscores the essential importance of heart plays in our lives and why we must care for it and nurture it appropriately. How do we define the heart for the humans? First of all, the heart generally referenced, if you look at it in the Bible, really refers to spirit or will. The heart occurs, if you look at it, it's about 708 times in the NIV, more than grace, soul, mind, and faith combined. My simplified definition is that which drives us and motivates us from inside out to give our all, to sacrifice all. the why behind our actions, that which makes an individual do something regardless of gain or risk, simply because they desire or want to do it, that which is closest and most important to us. So how can we protect our hearts, protect and keep them healthy? Matthew 6:19 says, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy, where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart is. What you spend most of your time, money, and energy on, that's probably a big clue of where your heart is. Therefore, choose wisely what you place your heart in, because it ties in with healthcare, with managing your health and taking care of yourself. So if you want to know more about this today, please ask us, all four of us, about this specific area, because that's where it starts. Finally, you know, we talk about risk factors for the heart. Many of you may know the physical risk factors, and the doctors, when you talk about, we see it on television and in our computers. But what about risk factors when it comes to the human heart as we deal with sacred care of ourselves? Well, here's some risk factors I think we need to think about that are probably really relevant. I just shared what's going on in our world today. See if these strike in a chord. Fear, insecurity, not knowing when to say enough, greed, rage, anger, hopelessness and despair, pride, hatred, being undisciplined. There are things we can choose, just like with our health, how we eat, how we take care of our bodies. There are things we can choose in terms of prevention for our heart as a whole. Here's some ideas to think about. Do you choose generosity, hospitality, love, forgiveness, gratitude, discipline, and faith? Choices determine the health of our hearts. What we choose to put into our hearts has everything to do with our outcome. Galatians 6:7-8 says, do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. The one who sows to please his sinful nature, from that nature will reap destruction. The one who sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap eternal life. This is certainly true with sacred care of health. What we invest in will have a lot to do with how healthy we are. And I can't say we have had a perfect journey. My wife will vouch for that. We've made a lot of mistakes over the years, but we've also learned how to invest more wisely to try to stay healthy. So finally, the 4 pillars to consider, which Steve and Sue mentioned earlier, is physical health. The 4 pillars are physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. So physical, health maintenance; emotional, right relationships; intellectual. I think for a minute, I want to pause here. This is really important. A lot of times we do things backwards. We let our emotions lead us to our convictions that lead to us justifying how we see the world, or what we believe, or how we take care of ourselves. And we've seen that with the pandemic. We've seen people use fear or other things to drive their convictions, then to drive ways of proving what their viewpoint is. Let me encourage you to say, first, we should be about learning truth, and from truth to build conviction, and then the emotions will come. Finally, spiritually, what is your compass? What is your North Star? What is your anchor? Where your treasure is can help you to know that, but it's so critical. Really being spiritual, in my mind, part is about what is your compass with life? What is your final bottom line that drives your heart and your choices? So let us travel on this journey today. Let us travel with you on this journey today. It's been my pleasure to share this briefly with you, all of us. And we're going to open it up simply to answer questions and to try to share. We're certainly happy to go in more depth with things you have, but please do not be afraid to ask questions. And certainly you can do it anonymously, I guess, if you want, but just ask. And thank you for the privilege and opportunity we have to share today. And so I'll stop there, Steve, and open it up, and we can maybe start to address some questions that are out there.
Guys, thanks. That's that's awesome.
Wow.
I appreciate just you guys sharing from your own lives. Sharon, I think the power of this is that we get a chance to kind of get you to ourselves in a sense, and we get a chance to learn from the wisdom of putting these worlds together, the physical, the spiritual, the mental, the emotional. And we see you guys doing that. So I just want to encourage all of us. We've got a cardiologist, we've got a wellness coach, we've got people who've been through years of experience trying to raise their family in challenging circumstances. I'd really love for you just to kind of think for a moment about some questions that would really take advantage of this moment for us to be able to learn and to really, to have an opportunity to speak to some people who really can help us and guide us. And so, what's a question that you have? I know we all have different questions, and I'm sorry. Oh, and so maybe what we could do actually here is we could stop the recording, which would be, I think,
I'm going to let Michelle go in this.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Michelle.
I mean, I agree with all of what Sonia shared as well. And I think for us, it was carving out that time that's needed for your family. And so we have Sunday nights for, their whole life since we've had kids. Sunday nights are sacred for us. Like, that is, nothing gets in the way. Nobody works. Nobody has other plans. Sunday nights are our time from dinner time on. So we've always had that. We family devotionals, or, we have fun with the kids. But that's still today. My oldest daughter is about ready to graduate from college. She just texted and said she's on her way because she likes family time. So she'll be here for tomorrow night. And I think just putting time in where, we didn't want it to be like our family against Chris's job. And so he's done things like take them to his office if he has to go in and grab instruments for something, or he's taught them all the parts of the face and nose and all the things, so they can list off all the glabella and all the different parts of the face. It's a little trivia they have for their friends. But even recently, he redid his office, kind of updated the decor and stuff. And we brought our daughters with us, a couple of them, and they helped measure and give their 2 cents. And so including them in a lot of that of his job where he could. And we just take 2 cars wherever we go because he's on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So he'll take 2 or 1 and I'll take the other 2. And we divide that up, but just trying to work in ways to spend time. We've gone along with our kids. We lead our youth and family ministry here as they got into the teen years. And that's a way for us to be really involved with them. And one advantage of Chris being able to be up all hours of the day and night is he could come home from a full day of work and there's 30 cars outside our house, a house full of people, and he can walk in with the best attitude and just grab some coffee and he's on. And that, I think I would cry if I had to work an entire day, 16 hours and walk into a house full of people, but he can walk in and give. So there's a lot of, things like that we've been able to use to help our family and different ways to spend time. And I agree with prioritizing vacations. And Chris was good about, I don't want to share your stuff, but good about the Dunkin' Donut dates on the weekends for the girls. They get a donut date. They still do those when they can, but yeah, just sort of making it's all of us. We pray about his patients, and it's been a family event, even though it's been more about his medical career, job-wise. So.
I think sometimes you got to figure out what works for you. Like Michelle is super good at being just, getting it done at home. And she's, I'm not the neatest person in the world. Michelle's super neat and organized. She has a degree in interior design. Our house looks nice because Michelle, I will pick something up if reminded. I'm not super rebellious about that, but I'll help when I'm reminded not to be the 5th child, but Michelle's good at doing that. And like she mentions coming in, it's actually not a sacrifice for me to come in and see 30 people on the driveway. Nothing made me happier than getting home on Friday night and finding out that Ryan Painter had forgotten to let us know the Campus Devo was at our house. And hey, we got this 30 cars, but for campus, that could be 60 kids. And there's no better way for your kids to learn that, you know, God and Christianity is fun than to have, you know, 50 loud campus kids in their house on Friday night as they try to fall asleep upstairs. But I think that story sounds good. That works for us because that works for Chris and Michelle Sharon. I'm pretty social. One brother in our church, I don't know if any of you guys know Ida Benson. He labeled me the black hole of fellowship because I'm the one you get stuck talking to, the last person at church every single week. So that works for us. In your marriage, like that hospitality taking that form may not be your best thing. It might be something else, you know, and that's okay. I think you do have to figure some of that stuff out. But I think those are things that help, they can refresh you. And other people will say, oh, look at you, you're great for doing that. And you'll feel like, no, I actually want to do that, but I'm certainly glad you're going to give me credit for it. Like it was a lot of self-denial, you know? And I think sometimes you have to figure out what works for you. Because I don't think it looks the same. The stuff that refreshes one family isn't the same for everybody. If you're talking about it from a strictly Christian standpoint, you know, there are some things that the Bible says to do, and you're going to strive to do those, whether it's your natural gift or not. But I think when you're talking about from the standpoint of self-care, you do need to think, okay, what's going to fill my tank? Because if all you do is empty your tank out, and at work and in your marriage like that, at the end, when your tank runs dry, you're not your best representation of God's image when it's truly dry. Now, we're Americans, we're comfortable. I think most people on here are in America. I don't know that for certain. So sometimes what we call the bottom of our tank is, you know, we still got a quarter of the tank left, and that's part of the lesson. But there is a bottom to that tank. And you have to have the humility to recognize that and know you've got to find something. So that works for you, and you've got to do it in a way that works. But the stuff Michelle described, that has been fun stuff for us because it worked for us.
Go ahead.
So here's another question. That's great. Thanks you guys for sharing. I think that's super, super helpful. I think one of the things that we're all facing is increased stress and anxiety and pressure in our lives. And I'd love to have maybe Marcus kind of start off with kind of addressing that. How do we in real time, in real life, put together sort of the physical heart, things that we really need to be paying attention to in any given week, and the spiritual, emotional, mental heart as well? How do you practically do that? Or how do you advise your patients to put those worlds together as they come to you with, you know, with stories of heart challenges and stress and bitterness and things that they're trying to kind of work through in both those kind of hearts?
Well, I guess I could share a little bit about, I guess, myself and my life. I guess what I will say is that the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, intellectual are really integrated. We often try to separate them out. And I think particularly as Christians in particular, sometimes we'll put a big emphasis on being spiritual, which is important. But we don't always realize, which is really in the Bible, the connection between all three of these, and even how Jesus ministered to all four of these. He really addressed all four of these issues in the New Testament. And so somehow, I don't know how that works. I'm not a theologian, but I know that all of that is important. So balance is really, really a key. And so many times, and I think I know the physicians on here will probably attest to this, many times patients who come in with physical ailments are so much linked to lifestyle choices and emotional issues and spiritual issues in their lives, which then drives the physical ailment. There's something called the broken heart syndrome, where people go into heart failure. Literally their heart fails, but it's because of emotional stress, emotional depression. So I think that is important to recognize that link. For me, I guess the other thing I would say personally is over the years, it's important to develop some healthy habits. I think part of the issue, like even with the pandemic, life happens. And so like playing in a sport or a game, if you train and you practice, then you're more prepared when those stresses and those events occur to address those issues. And it takes practice. But so certainly doing some, having the discipline to do some kind of physical activity to help your body, watching your diet is important because it builds strength. And I am certainly not perfect at it. And certainly as I get older and in this pandemic with the COVID diet, I have to confess it's not been that easy and it's been a challenge, but you never give up. I still am fighting to do what I can. And also as you age, your body changes. So you just have to work within that context, but you still try to work. So, I work out every morning, for about an hour and then also try to work on the diet. The second is I found over the years, and this is where my church has helped me a lot, is that I think we run in America. We especially if you have very demanding profession, every day it helps to take some time out to meditate, to pray, to refocus on what's really important. And I don't do it necessarily every day, but it's become a habit that I do almost every day. And if it's 15 minutes, a half hour, or an hour, that is like sanity time. It's amazing taking 20 minutes of silence just to spend time in prayer or meditation or reading something to build up your spirit is very powerful. And so I think both Sonia and I have learned that has helped us a lot. And then I do believe that relationships are really critical. I have had to learn how to be a friend. I'm not a great friendship-like person, but I've had a lot of help through the church to teach me how to be a friend. And when you talk about emotional issues and emotional healing, I mean, many men, not all men, but many men have a difficult time connecting with what's going on inside of us. And it is so critical. In fact, I have a theory that why women live longer than men in part is because women are always talking, and they always share what is ever going on. A lot of men, not all men, but a lot of us, we stuff it and we have a hard time getting in even into what's going on. But great friendship, great relationships can create a place, a safe space for you to talk. And certainly during the pandemic and certainly during this racial awakening and all that, I really need to have some people I feel safe with where I can talk about these kind of things. So that would be a couple of things I would do. And then the final thing is a word that's really important that we often, it's not always looked at favorably in America, is accountability. Accountability and discipling, having mentors or people in your life that can kind of say, hey, you're going off track, think about that. Maybe you want to turn left instead of right. You see it so often with talented people in our community in the world who are doing brilliant things, and then they make a choice that just destroys their life, right? Because maybe they're not listening, or the person's not in their life. And that's true even within the church. We see those who listen and have that input and those who don't. And I struggle with my own humility, my own pride. And so sometimes I just need strong men in particular in my life that I can trust, who can help that journey along the way.
I was just going to say one thing, conversations, especially in the last year and a half, that I've been blessed to be able to have with patients that come into the clinic, but also with neighbors and friends and other people, in addition to brothers and sisters, is that I think even when people aren't looking to a spiritual source, is to just talk to them about the commonness of humanity and learning how to forgive. Because I talk to so many patients that the grudges they hold are hurting them. It's not hurting the other person. It's making them physically ill. Even during this time of social injustice is that it's not that we're going to forget things that are happening, but we have to release, we have to let go of those things that cause the pain. And I mean, it's a biblical principle, but it works for everyone, is that you have to learn how to forgive, how to release. And I think when we focus on common humanity, it helps us to remember that we're all human, that we all make mistakes, that we all hurt others, and that we're going to want someone to give us grace one day. And God gives us grace all the time. We have to give grace back to others. So I think even for my girls, I talk to them a lot about forgiveness.
I think something that Marcus and Chris have both mentioned here was just being, close to family and spending the time and making that time special. And I love that. It's something I try to do actively. Part of me during COVID fears I've gone so far in that direction that I'm a little unwilling to pull back on what I give and do for my son. I have one son, he's 11, and COVID has caused both of us to turn into computer potatoes, couch potatoes, and we're trying to fill the time that COVID has kind of trapped us in, and now that things are, I'm vaccinated. I don't know when he'll get vaccinated, but
no plan.
if there's no plan for somebody his age apparently. So, we're just trying to, I think in some way we lost footing, and we're trying to recapture that footing and try to get back into more activity. So we're both losing weight, we're both keeping healthy, we're both maintaining that father-son, mother-son relationship, and really trying to leave COVID behind in some ways. Like, it'll be a part of our history, but we don't want it to necessarily remain a part of our lives, So I think there's a piece of that I'm really struggling with, trying to move in that direction, kind of get off the couch, move into the world of removing the stress, removing the anxiety, and really trying to help him operate in a way that's healthy. I'm just kind of curious if Marcus and Chris, you're both dads, if you have just good fatherly advice in that area.
Hey, Chris, well, you take it first.
I guess it sounds like there's two, if I'm correct, there's kind of two parts of the question. One is just not necessarily just being on a couch and doing a computer. And then the other one is sort of the physical fitness stuff and kind of getting back out there. I think one thing, I mean, if as the dad that me and my son need to do something for physical fitness, just chart that out. I mean, I think it depends on where you've been on that. I would say I think fitness is super important. I think sometimes we can making it a little bit too targeted. But I mean, if your personality tends more towards liking things that are more extreme, there are so many ways, even if you're still in COVID, to be in shape. I mean, I think I know Kevin did Body for Life one time. I did that. If you like P90X, I mean, and those are all things that you're writing things down in charts. You can do that together. You can have a little contest, but you can also just kind of agree, you do as much as you can so that there will be an actual tomorrow. I've definitely had times where you can kind of take what was refreshing you and you turn that into another job or chore, which you don't want to do with fitness. I think I've gone from times where I'm doing something that's a habit for fitness and I love it at first, and I actually turn into something. I'm walking down the steps and say, "Oh my gosh, how many push-ups?" And so I think you got to get a balance with that. I would say to plan it out. Say, "Okay, son, here's what we're gonna do. I got this set of videos. We're just gonna do this till we can't move." Or if that's your personality and that works for both of you, great. Oh, I can do more than you. Look at me, I'm the old man. I can do more than you. If that works for your dynamic, if it doesn't, then you figure out another way to do it. Maybe it's all about, hey, let's see if you can get your 11-year-old to do his first pull-up, because that could be something you have to build up. You can make it fun. If you make a plan together, or what does he want to do? you know, and it might be, you know, okay, you pick one, I pick one, you know. I think you just make a plan and do it. And another thing you could do something that's serving together. I don't know if how many calories it'll burn. It depends on how you're serving, you know, and what you're doing. But I think just gotta be when you go into fitness, I know I have done this to myself many times. I start off with this goal, and then I actually turn it into something that goes from being really fun and inspiring, gets me good results, to actually something that kind of becomes a bit of a burden. And so I think you got to have a way to do that, you know, in a way that works for you. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah,
I would,
fine. It's great. I appreciate that. Yeah, Marcus.
I would like to ask that, but before I go for it, I know Michelle is a wellness and fitness trainer, so I thought maybe if you have some tips. Maybe we could hear from you first, and then I could share a little bit too.
Sure. I mean, I think I like, you know, kind of what Chris shared is you find something that you want to do together to make it fun. As far as fitness goes, that's what, you know, that is one of the biggest success indicators. If you can find something you like to do, whether it's tennis, if it's outdoor things, I mean, you can turn anything into a fitness, you know, plan. You can go play on the playground every Saturday. You know, you can run around the track at his school or walk around the track, or I mean, whatever he likes to do, and doing it together is, you know, probably the best way to tackle that. If you're going to do it together with him, as a goal to kind of get yourself back out of the house and off the computer and all the stuff we all need to do after COVID. But yeah, boot camps and I mean, all different kinds of things, whatever will motivate him and make it fun, because that can build huge memories. That's a whole side benefit of it, is the memories that you can build together. But yeah, keeping it fun and something you both like to do.
I want to jump back in here one time because I told my wife and daughters a couple weeks ago, you guys may think this is humorous. If you got a son who's 11 years old, there's just some new cool stuff out there beyond what I would do. And this is not from the, I would try some Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's this new kind of cool thing. It's not the same as MMA, right? So it's more like judo-ish. It's very cool. It's very practical. It's fun. You will burn more calories, and you don't punch or kick anybody in their face. You keep the facial fractures down to a real minimum in that sport. But you will, yeah, I think people like that. Someone just put a name of grappling, but it's basically grappling. But it's a lot of fun. It'll make him cooler at school, and no one gets punched in the face. As long as you don't transition into the octagon, you're good.
There you go.
And I would just ditto what's already been shared. I think that just being intentional and getting out. Well, a lot of times I tell my patients that simply walking is exercise. You can walk 20 minutes or something. And so even just doing that on a regular basis, you do it up to, I think, 3 or 4 times a week, that, especially for about a half hour at modest, that's not bad. And that's a thing almost everybody can do. But I think making it fun, and it could be sports or whatever, is good. And the other thing I also tell my patients is, and I like to do, is have goals, targets. Like, for example, when my daughter decided she would join me to climb Kilimanjaro, we started that about 1.5 years before we did it. So we had a goal. So we were trying to get in shape for that. So that was really motivating for that year to do things that I ordinarily wouldn't want to do because I didn't want to get showed up when I was climbing the mountain. So there might be little things here and there, or rewards, or, you know, where we're going to go on vacation and we want to be able to run on the beach. So why don't we, you know, for the next couple of months, do a couple of things so we'll really be in shape to enjoy that, and then go and enjoy the moment while you're there on your vacation or whatever. I have found those kinds of incentives are ways to help keep it fresh, because Chris is also right. When you do something for a while, it does get like, you got to kind of mix it up and keep changing the scenario in terms of, but creating some different opportunities that you and your son could be partners in might be fun.
We did a challenge with the entire family, all of Marcus's siblings, our nephews and nieces, and we actually bought Fitbits for everybody and challenged everybody. Everyone set their own goals because our daughter is a fitness trainer, so she helped everyone set their own goals. But we had a culminating gift at the end of the we actually took the family on vacation and gave the awards there. So it was really amazing because everybody had a great time, and it was something that we all did together for several months. And we had more contact than we'd had in a long, on a regular basis than we had in a long time. And we were all getting healthier. So it was a lot of fun.
And in fact, the person who won that was my mom. I think she was 85 at the time. And she won the contest. It's like playing golf. You have your whatever your handicap. So everybody had a different level they had to achieve, and she was a real go-getter. And it's also an example where we were fortunate, but we were able to rent a house and have everybody meet us at that house where we did the celebration, and the winner got the little reward. So that was done over about a 3 to 4 to 6 month period. But everybody, for that short period of time, everybody got engaged, everybody lost weight, and we had a blast during that period.
Well, that's bold too, because Mark's Sonya's daughter is not only a fitness trainer, she's a fitness model. She's done modeling in terms of fitness. So they were going up against some pretty serious genes there. Yeah, some serious competition. So that to me, what's great is it's such a well-roundedness to these conversations and these questions. Thanks so much for asking them and for your helpful guidance on those. Are there any other questions? We've got about another 10 minutes together. I'd love to get a few more questions in if we can. Is there anybody else that would like to ask a question?
Steve, there was this one great question in the chat from Carol. Can I just read that, Carol?
Sure.
Yeah. Yes.
So one of the challenges I faced was being a mom / wife in medicine and trying to balance time with the kids during residency / fellowship. And as an attending, I felt like it was a juggling act, I guess, balancing the 24 hours a day and then coming home to be there for the kids who had to go to bed because of school. I'm not sure if I have an answer for that, but I have some applause. You're the bomb. You are the bomb, Mom. Holy moly. I think I would go. I just think that had to be addressed in some way, recognizing you did that. I love Sonia's advice. You take the time you get, maybe plan it out. I am not a planner, and that's why I said some of the things I said before. I will plan the things I have to, like surgeries and things like that need to be planned. But it is like carving a chunk out of my soul when I don't know what my problem is. There's something about me that doesn't want to plan anything. Maybe next time we do one of these things, we'll have a psychiatrist on and they can explain to you what that DSM-3 diagnosis is, but I don't like to do that. But I think when you're that busy, and you probably did this, I think you have to plan your momhood. And just like, some of the things with the mutually exclusive expectations, we kind of have these stories and we see TV shows and our culture kind of tells us leads us to believe these sort of spontaneous times. I think the spontaneous times happen within the planned times. Sonia pointed out, hey, it took about 30 minutes after we've been away from each other all day for the real conversation to start. And I think you plan the time, and then within that, God will create some spontaneity as far as those moments that end up being milestones in your relationship. Because with that kind of schedule, there's no one accidentally making it happen or randomly making it happen like that. I think you have to just let that. And I just know from stuff that I was always so grateful for the parents who would tell us. There's a brother in our church, Steve Fillier, and he used to tell these stories about his oldest daughter, who's in the singles in Boston right now, in our Boston church. He'd tell us stories how he would sit there with her and she just wouldn't talk for the whole daddy-daughter daytime. And it made me feel so much better because right then I was taking our oldest daughter out on dates. And if you can imagine, anybody who knows of it, they can ever imagine any time where Chris Sharon and Courtney Sharon are in the same room and no talking's going on, but it could actually happen. I think Emma might know our daughter Courtney, but sometimes you have to power through the planned out, not so perfect parenting times to get some of those golden times. So sorry, I don't know if that answered anything, but I just thought that's so amazing that you were able to do that. So I don't want to let that slide by. Oh, Michelle's going to say something.
Oh, I just think practically sometimes maybe even, I don't know how old your kids are, but you can leave them notes so they know you were there. They might have been asleep because you said you come home after being away for 24 hours and they're in bed, but you can leave little notes, right? I take lipstick and write on their mirrors. You know, you can do little things like that to let them know I was here. I actually came in, you were sleeping, but I was here. You know, little note maybe by their pillow or, you know, things like that. Leave them a little note for in the morning for when they get up for breakfast. I mean, there were times when Chris didn't see Courtney for days, except for when she was sleeping. So we have stories to tell her. He went in and he saw you and you were sleeping and you know, whatever. She was really small then, but there's ways to let them know you were there and that you saw them, you went in, you gave them a kiss on the forehead, whatever it is. And that you heard, you know, about their day through, I don't know, your husband or their dad or the siblings or something, but there's just trying to be creative to let them know that you were there when they were sleeping.
And say that, you know, you just remind me, sorry to jump in again, but like I told Michelle after residency, oh, I remember when I had residency, I would be so bummed and depressed and I would go in Courtney's room on the way out the door and just look at her sleeping and start to cry. And she told me, well, I wish you had told me you were doing that because you seem so disengaged and fried and nothing to give. You doofus. What? She didn't say doofus. She didn't say doofus, but she thought it. But it would have been good if I had just been vulnerable and told my wife, you know, I go in that room and cry on my way out in the morning because I don't get to spend time with her. Sometimes just saying that you want to, what am I doing?
You're reliving it.
Yeah, I'm reliving. I'm flashing back. Sorry, guys, a little PTSD there. We do need this psychiatrist on this next conference for me, guys, or at least a counselor. Just letting them see that I wish I had more time for you, I think might do more than the perfect time.
Right. And Marcus
That's
might
great. Thank you. That's great. Yeah, just dealing with the guilt. They're older now, and one of my friends on this call sent me a direct message and said, "Listen, don't stop feeling bad about what you didn't do and try to do it now." So, thanks, Gladys.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Don't feel bad. And you know, there are people I've seen, like we've seen in our church, people come to church when they are some age when they thought they've blown it forever. Their kids might be 10, their kids might be 15, their kids might be 25. And those people, they change something. They change and their kids see it and it fixes the relationship. A lot of times we think maybe we think, well, we've been with God for a while and we didn't do it what we thought was the perfect way from the parenting book or the parenting talk we heard at a conference one time. Boy, I didn't score all the way out like I should have. And now it's just done, you know, and that's not true. Today's a new day. Mm-hmm. And if you change, the relationship can change. Assuming, I'm not even saying, oh, you need to change it in that kind of a way at all, but I'm just saying if that's the case, someone else is going to say something.
Marcus might have some 24 hours.
I was just going to say, Mackie, I think that that's part of self-care is forgiving yourself for the things you did have control over, but also recognizing there was so much you didn't. I mean, how many of us could have finished training, be a mom and a wife? I mean, I know myself, that would not have happened. So I think forgiving yourself is part of your self-care and recognizing what your limitations were. So,
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Raising kids is complicated.
it is.
There is no perfect recipe. Every family is different. I think Chris said it earlier that what way you work for one family may be different for another. There are some general principles that I think are important. And also, I think that we are students our whole lives in understanding how to be better at whatever we do. So that's the key. I think the heart of it is to continue to hold on to those choices I talked about in terms of fighting for love, for generosity, for forgiveness, and but every situation there's some variability there. So that for who everybody's on it, and that's okay. I think the hard is you keep trying to learn from it and to get better at it. That's just the way God created relationships. Is this part of the journey?
That's awesome, you guys.
Okay.
Maybe we could close with this question. Marilyn just put in the chat. This has been great. And gosh, we're all on this journey, this sacred journey of self-care. And I think it's just so healthy just to be able to talk about it and to stimulate each other's thinking when it comes to these things. And it's so helpful to have the Williamses and the Charon's perspectives here. But the question is, as a nurse, I'm dealing with compassion fatigue with families I work with and COVID guideline compliance. Is there anything that helps you, quote, in the moment? Any advice would be appreciated.
You can open that up for him too.
Yeah, and Suzanne, we could open it up for Kevin or, Margaret or others. Carol, Dr. Gill.
I know for me, I see 40 to 60 patients a day in urgent care, and many of those have COVID, and they get COVID because they just threw all caution into the wind. We're not believers, and now they're believers. And I've seen that when when the patient begins to be a burden to me, when I'm bothered because they're there, I know that something isn't right. And what that usually says to me is I need a longer walk, more rest. I need to eat. I need to take a break. And I think it just gets back to, we've got to take care of ourselves just like Jesus did, so that we can give of ourselves to others. And I think that us in the medical profession in particular are the worst about taking care of ourselves. We honestly are. Marcus has been for me such a inspiration of just the discipline of exercise. That guy has ran on every continent in the world. And, I just think that part of dealing with compassion fatigue is seeing it early. So when I'm bothered by the patient, I know I'm suffering from some compassion fatigue. So the two things I do is, okay, one, I got to take care of myself as soon as I can. The second thing is I say a prayer in the room to myself, to God, my Father, while that patient's in the room. Give me peace, give me wisdom, give me compassion, help me to love them like Jesus did, help me to see the real issue. The patient doesn't have any idea that I am praying as they're talking, but that's been very helpful for me.
I'm glad to know that someone else does that same prayer. Same thing, like, help me not choke this person because I want to right now. I cannot believe they chose this and now we're going to fix it, right? Yeah. And you can't always do it. And you can get, I think it was Carol, you can get pretty frustrated. You can get pretty frustrated. It's easy. I had a very arrogant patient one time who, if you're in medicine or there are some people who kind of come in and they're almost like, you can't tell me anything. I know better. I know what all you doctors and nurses say, and no one tells me what to do. Now, most people really aren't like that, but there are some people. And I had one guy like that, and I did a scope, looked at the scope, saw and pulled the scope out, said, "Congratulations, sir, you've earned yourself a throat cancer." And that was not a moment of great victory, obviously, but I got so frustrated with this guy, and that is exactly what he had. He came in and he had this very sort of cocky, you can't tell me what to do, and I know how you all are. And I was just like, great, congratulations, you want to be, and you don't want to get to that point. Now, honestly, I don't know if anything else would have moved this particular guy. The Bible talks about a forehead of flint. And this guy was not someone who wanted to listen to anything. I think only bad news would have budged this guy. But you can get to a point where you're feeling hostile, and Kevin's right. You got to stop and pray before you go over that line, and let it, because then it's really starting to affect you and who you are in a negative way. And you don't want to get to the point where you're almost retaliatory towards your patients because you're just so fried. And COVID does. I with COVID, I just joke about it all the time. I shake your hand, but it's illegal, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's try to make a joke out of it. Sometimes that's all you can do.
So I think that part of what we were talking about today is related to that question. It's about, it's really about self-care. I think both Kevin and Chris have kind of hit on the key parts of that. And I think in healthcare, but it's true of any profession that you're part of, whatever you are, is that you're going to reach points where you feel like you're going to burn out, or you start looking at people like they're monsters or whatever. And so I think that's an important thing to recognize. I think it's normal. I think we all have those moments. So it doesn't mean that you're weird because you have it. It's just how you deal with it. For me, what's helpful is to get away and to do those walks, to take a little time at some point to think, to pray. And also it's great to have people, safe places where I can talk about patients who are being kind of crazy, like what Chris is talking about, and be really honest about what I did or how I felt inside, even if it may not be politically correct, but to be able, you need to have a place to be able to just express that, even because we're human, and then to refuel. So that's what I found personally helpful.
Guys, that's awesome. There's just so much inspiration and practical help there, and I love that question, kind of that in the moment. How do I handle this? Kind of getting that long-term perspective of self-care, but also sort of in the moment. How do I cope, and how do I get through it so I can, so I can handle it and not kind of fumble too much in that moment, but try to minimize the effects of maybe a bad response in that time. But I think I'm hoping that this can be a beginning for these kind of conversations and not necessarily just an end. I know we've gotten a lot of good feedback, and the presentations and the teaching today has been fantastic. Thank you so much, Williams's and Sharon's. We love you guys, and the reason that we're so excited to have you here is because of your vulnerability, because of your realness, because you're doing this in your real lives, and you're willing to share that with us, and it's just so helpful. But I also want to really just encourage us all to keep the conversation going, because that was a big part of even what Marcus just shared right there, is for us to have those safe places to talk and to get that talk therapy that we all need, to be able to work out the things that are going on in our hearts, to guard them, because we're opening them up, and we've got those people to talk to, we've got God to talk to, and we're really having those conversations that do affect us in those places. I really do want to encourage us that we can do this, that we can take care of ourselves in a way that enables us to be healthy and strong and flourishing, and enables us to have something to give to the world around us. Because I do think in the midst of this, there is a world out there that really needs people who are taking good care of themselves, so that they can then turn to them and really love them and help them and offer that kind word or that helpful hand, in times of need. So let's just really inspire one another and help each other with this sacred journey of self-care.
Being stamped by God. I love that from the very beginning. Love that.
And let's be health empowered, because we've had these sessions together, and we've really taken to heart, what's been talked about here today. Thanks so much, Broyles's, Dr. Gill, Williams's, Sharon's, Margaret. I know, who am I forgetting?
And everybody that's joined, thank you
Yeah,
so much.
thanks so much
What an
for
honor.
taking your time out of your busy schedules to come and serve and encourage us. And we're going to really take hold of these things and run with them and put them into practice.
Yeah, thank you to Steve and Sue for having this vision for this to happen. So this has been great.
Thanks, Margaret.
I'm
Thanks.
looking forward to tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow's going to be great. We're going to have a church service together to really honor and thank all our healthcare heroes, and we're really looking forward to that. I think that's just going to be just a real time of refreshing for all of us. So,
Yeah.
thanks for spending your afternoon with us. It is 2:06, and we want to let everybody go and say thanks for attending. It's been a great time to be together. Love you guys.
Love you guys.